We're with Morris Dirks, and Morris, you've spent a long time in ministry, and over the recent years you've developed a strong understanding of the power of shame and how it shapes a leader's life. What advice would you give to someone just starting out in ministry that knows that the life that they're pursuing may have something of that in their future, and they want to know how to respond when that comes into their life?
You know, I get to work with a lot of pastors, and I say, if you are going to be trained to be a police officer, when you're at the police academy, they're going to tell you you're entering a dangerous occupation. We don't tell people who are entering the ministry, you're entering a dangerous occupation. It's dangerous, not physically, but it's dangerous emotionally. It's dangerous psychologically. It's dangerous spiritually, because it's a place where when we're in relationships with people, we're more at risk for criticism, and we're more at risk for being measured, analyzed, and we're more at risk for being shamed. When you're willing to lead people up front spiritually, you set yourself up. We don't cover that well enough before we move people into ministry.
Sure. As a young leader, what kind of contribution or advice would you suggest we kind of keep our eyes focused on when we first get hit by that first blast of shame in a ministry context?
Absolutely. First of all, start thinking about what you feel when you experience shame. Like, notice what would be an obvious shame incident, like you got criticized, or you failed at something, or someone made fun of you, sort of a real obvious, and pay attention to the feelings and the thoughts in your head, what starts to spin you, so that you recognize shame. Because if we don't recognize the spin that's happening, then we let it happen without doing anything about it. Once you've started to recognize what it's like when you're in a shame cycle, when something, criticism or a mistake, or you're not performing well enough, or something like that happens, you will feel it or think it, and you will know, I'm in a shame cycle. And then you need to bring it out into the open and talk to someone else about it, talk to God about it. And as Jesus said in Hebrews, you need to scorn the shame, which means don't mess with it and let it run you. You have to take it captive, or it'll take you captive.
You mentioned in your talk about how Jesus functions as that shame taker from us. Can you kind of walk us through how we can look to Jesus when we're experiencing shame?
Well, first of all, Jesus took all the shame of the world on himself there. So our shame is there on the cross, all our sin and our shame. And the Bible talks about sin and shame. It's really interesting how it puts both out there. And shame is so directly connected to sin and leads us into sinful behaviors because we want to cover the shame up. So the way I think they need to look to Jesus is just realize that when he was on the cross, it says in Hebrews, he scorned the shame. He named it, he knew it, he felt it, and he scorned the shame. So we need to know that Jesus is there with us in our shame, has already experienced it, and wants to join us in scorning our shame. And if we can do that with somebody else who will pray over us, when we verbalize the shame and invite Jesus to heal it, we're a long ways down the path than just dealing with it by ourselves.
Any final thoughts or last words that you really want young leaders to know about this topic?
I think ministry is some of the most wonderful careers we could enter. And I just want people to be aware of the fact that as we look at it, it can look glamorous, but when you get into all the people problems and the challenges of people and the unhappiness of people, it can become emotionally dangerous. So you've picked up on shame here today together with me, and that may be one of the core things that I would ask a young person to be aware of, to be ready for, and probably to do some reading on that, and to be doing some reading on self-awareness of how they function in relationships with other people, so that they know where they get in trouble, what their weak side is.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent.
Okay.
Mr. Dirks, thank you so much.
Oh, it's an honor.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.